Welcome to a new unit. So this is Module 4. And Module 4 is all about something called order of operations. So essentially what order of operations is it is a mathematical way of taking steps to solve problems that require multiple steps. So it's essentially a way to take something that requires multiple steps into a process, because you can't just do whatever steps that you want, because unfortunately that will cause issues. So we have a certain order of doing operations or a certain order of doing multiple steps. So with that being said, here there's an acronym. It's called PEMDAS. That might sound very familiar to a lot of us. So essentially, P in this acronym, P stands for parentheses. And then E stands for exponents. And M stands for multiply. D stands for divide. A stands for add. And S stands for subtract. Now, you might notice is that I have this steps here, and I have it labeled 1 through 6. And that is because you want to do steps in this order. However, there is a, you might sometimes with steps, so like let's look here. For steps 3 and 4, they can go either way. You might have to do division first and multiplication. You might do division first rather than multiplication, or adding and subtracting. These steps can flip too. So, but we'll actually run into that this lesson. So in this lesson, we will be focusing on taking where we just have to do steps 5 and 6 separately and steps 3 and 4 separately. And we've actually been doing this a lot without being unaware of it. And then when we do this, we always want to work from left to right of an equation. So without further ado, let's start the actual content of 4.1. So in this case, for 4.1, we are just going to be focusing on steps 5 and 6. So we're just going to be focusing on, I'll write that up here. Well, in this section, because we have another section. So steps 3 and 4, and then we have, this one is going to be steps 5 and 6 on their own. So if you notice, all we have in these problems, all we're doing is adding and subtracting things. We're not multiplying or dividing things. All we're doing is adding and subtracting. So in this case, if you only have addition and subtraction, all you have to do is work from left to right. So all you have to do is you have to first find out what 3 minus 2 is. So let's start there. So 3 minus 2 equals 1. And then we're going to add 7. And then 1 plus 7 equals 8. And that's our answer. Here, that's kind of sloppy. There you go. And then from here, we're going to work from left to right. So 10 minus 12 is negative 2. Then we're going to do plus 3 minus 2. And then negative 2 plus 3 is 1. And then we're going to subtract 2. And then 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And that is our answer. Looking at example 3. We have negative 52 plus 32 minus negative 3. So let's first start here. So negative 52 plus 32 is negative 20. And then we're going to do minus negative 3. And then we have negative 20 minus negative 3. And if we recall from the first unit, we learned if we are subtracting a negative number, the sign changes and the number becomes positive, and then we add. So we go do a chop. That's what I like to call it. So we get we're actually doing negative 20 plus 3. And negative 20 plus 3 is negative 17. Looking at example 4, I encourage you to pause the video and work through this problem on your own if you haven't yet. And remember, you're going to work from left to right when you do it. And assuming you have given it a go, let's work through it. So 17 plus negative 4 is really, I'll write it up here in parentheses, 17 minus 4. That's what it really is. Remember, so when we're adding a negative number, it changes to subtraction. So we get 17 minus 4, and 17 minus 4 is 13. And then we're going to subtract 13 from here, and then we're going to subtract negative 3. 13 minus 13 is 0, and we're going to do minus negative 3. And then because we're subtracting a negative, we're going to go say chop, chop, and it's going to change to addition. So 0 plus 3 equals 3. Looking at example 5, we are dealing with fractions. So, but the same rules still apply. So we're just going from left to right. So 3 over 7 plus 8 over 7. These two fractions have common denominators, so we just simply add these two numerators together. So 3 plus 8 is going to be 11. So we got 11 over 7, and then we're going to subtract 1/2. And then to get a common denominator, I'm going to multiply, well, I want a common denominator in this case. I encourage you to actually pause the video and subtract these two fractions on your own. Now let's work through it. So I would multiply the 7 by 2, or this entire fraction by 2. And then I would multiply this entire fraction by 7. And I'm doing that because I want a common denominator of 14. So 2 times 11 equals 22. And then 2 times 7 is 14. And then we're going to subtract 1 times 7 is 7. And then 2 times 7 is 14. So perfect. We got a common denominator of 14. So now let's just subtract the numerators. So 22 minus 7 is equal to 15. So we got 15 over 14. And that's our final answer. Looking at example 6, I encourage you to pause the video and try this one on your own. Let's work through it. So remember, we're working from left to right. So first, we want to find out what negative 4/3 minus 7 equals. And in this case, I want a common denominator of 3. Oops, not 7 over 3. Of 3. So to make this fraction have a denominator of 3, I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3. So what we're going to get is negative 4/3 minus 7 times 3 is 21. And we'll put that over 3. And then 4 minus 21 is equal to negative 25. So we get negative 25 over 3. And then from there, we're going to do negative 25 over 3 plus 2, or not 2. Oops. We're going to do 3 over 2. So, and then from here, we don't have a common denominator. So we're going to, I'm going to decide that I want a common denominator of 6, because that is our least common multiple, which isn't a term I've introduced yet. That's actually for next unit. But anyways, so we're going to find a common denominator of 6. So for this fraction, I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2. And then this one, I'm going to multiply by 3. So we get 2 times 25. So we're going to make this first fraction negative because it's negative. So we're going to do negative 2 times 25 is 50. And then we're going to put that over 6. And then we're going to add 3 times 3 is 9. And then we're going to put that over 6. So negative 50 plus 9, that's going to get you a negative 41. Not positive 41, negative. Don't forget those negatives, okay? So we get negative 41 over 6, and that can't be reduced. So that's a final answer. Yeah. So now let's practice these other problems. So now we're going to be practicing steps 3 and 4 on their own instead of steps 5 and 6. So remember, steps 3 and 4 are just multiplication and division. If it helps, I really encourage you to memorize the acronym PEMDAS, PEMDAS, because that'll save you a lot of time in memorizing. So anyways, because we're just focusing on steps 3 and 4, as per usual, because we're just dealing with 3 and 4, just like how we just dealt with 5 and 6, all we're going to do is move from left to right. So let's move left to right with this one. So we have 3 times 3 divided by 3. So we're first going to do 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. And then we're going to divide by 3. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then, for example 6, I encourage you to pause the video and work on your own. This one is a little bit more tricky, but it's not too bad. So let's work through it. So whenever you have more than one operation, like in a numerator and in a denominator, you always want to simplify the numerators and the denominators first. That should be like your first step when you have multiple operations. So we're going to want to do -5 times 8 and -40 times 1. So -5 times 8 is -40. And then -40 times 1 is -40. And then we're going to multiply that by 2. And then because we work from left to right, we're going to do -40 divided by -40. And negative divided by negative is a positive. So we just get +1. And we're going to multiply that by 2. And 1 times 2 is 2. Now, looking at our last couple examples, we have -4 times 7 over 28. So, I encourage you to pause the video, please, and work through it if you have the capacity, I guess. Or just give it a shot. Just try. Okay, now let's work through it together. So we have -4 times 7. So -4 times 7 is going to be -28. So we got -28 over 28. And 28 divided by 28 is 1. And then because we have one negative and one positive, the answer is going to be negative. Positive divided by negative is negative. And that's your answer, -1. Now, going through our last example, example 8, we have 10 divided by 2 times 6 times 2. So as always, work from left to right. And as always, pause the video and work through it. Work through it. Now, let's work through it. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we get 5 times 6 times 2. Oh, not 6, times 2. So we're going to do 5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30. Multiply that by 2. 30 times 2 is 60. And that is your final answer.